place. Good morning and welcome into First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That is Nick Wright. We got Doug Gottlieb.
Good to see you.
Lib, all of it.
Both of you guys are joke or something.
Hey, you started that yesterday.
I did, and you ended.
You got a little trim?
No, he got the trim.
You got a little trim?
No. Yesterday morning, Doug made fun of my hair, so I made fun of his back. That's
No,
all
I
it was.
understand, but then you did get a trim after the show.
Well, yeah, of course. I get a weekly haircut, of course.
Weekly?
Yeah, weekly haircut.
It's an interesting
Doug Gottlieb.
schedule. I'm more of a, is it bi-weekly? That's every other week?
Yeah, that is.
I do
That's
get confused by the bi. Like,
Well,
right,
while
does
we're
that mean twice?
contributing-
Semi-weekly would be twice a
While
week,
we're
bi-weekly.
contributing, I'm
Thank
looking
you. I
at 4 to
appreciate that.
6 weeks, just when it gets a little bit too long and it's unmanageable. Just
Okay.
thought I would
Good to
contribute
know.
that.
Now America knows all our hair
Her hair's out 4 to 6. But healthy enough to play in the Eagles-Cowboys game.
Yes, it is. We got a jam-packed show for you on this Thursday morning. We're going to jump right in with some news out of Dallas. It is put up or shut up time for the Dallas Cowboys as they prepare for their biggest game of the season, Sunday, against the Philadelphia Eagles. Dak Prescott was limited in practice yesterday with a right shoulder injury that he suffered in last week's win over the Rams. How bad is it? Jason Garrett said that it's hard for Dak to function at this point. That's not great. Here's more from the head coach.
He's as tough as they come. His physical toughness and mental toughness are on par with anybody I've been around, and that's just what he's all about. He handles success, he handles adversity, he handles issues as well as anybody.
All right, Nick, spin it forward to Sunday. How do you think this affects Zach in the Eagles game?
Well,
also Dak.
Well, it could affect him substantially. It really depends on, is this an AC joint, in which case probably won't affect him much? Is it a rotator cuff, in which case it will affect him incredibly? Dr. David Chow is a former NFL doctor. I think he's in Southern California, around the area you are, Doug, where he does a lot of this on like Twitter medicine, if you will, but he has real experience with football teams and with NFL injuries. He seems to think it's a rotator cuff, given the way Dak played after sustaining the injury.
Because it was early in the game, like first quarter or something.
And that type of injury, it gets worse days later, not hours later. You can play through it as opposed to an AC joint, which would have been the worst in the real time at that moment and then gotten better. If it's a rotator cuff, it's a big deal. And the only silver lining for the Cowboys is maybe this forces their hand into playing the type of game they should play against the Eagles, which is exactly right, which is hand the ball to Zeke as many times as you can early in the game. They're 4-1 when Zeke has 65 yards rushing in the first half of games thus far this season. Feed him early and see if Zeke, who averages, I think, 165 yards from scrimmage in his 5 career games, which are 5 career wins against Philadelphia, can continue this trend. But the other part of this that struck me was this is the end of his 4th year in the NFL. He's never missed a practice, and this is his first time being limited in practice, which speaks to his overall toughness and durability. So I do expect to see him out there, but if it is a rotator cuff, it will have some type of measurable impact on how effective he can be.
No question. He did play through it, and you're right. It does. It's one of those, it's like when you roll an ankle in the first half. It gets worse, then you wake up the next day and you're like, oh my God, right? And this is Wednesday, but he's tougher than a $2 steak. I mean, this is a guy, remember, he's got a hairline fracture in one of his fingers.
Yep.
He's got a sprained left wrist. Like, he's kind of held together with duct tape here. But I don't think that his downfield throws, that they're going to need him to throw 40. If he's throwing 45 times, Cowboys are in trouble. Right? They need to hand the ball off, conservative game plan. If he doesn't see it, he can also still run it. I mean, it's one of the things about Dak, which I think he is a bit of an underrated athlete. We do forget that he was a read option quarterback most of his career at Mississippi State before late in his career becoming more of a trying to make himself involved into a pocket thrower. So do I think it affects him? Yeah. I mean, it's going to be cold. It's Philadelphia. It's going to be a nasty environment. Nobody feels great. And when your shoulder ain't right or your finger ain't right and your throwing finger, it's going to affect you. And he's a guy that when he reloads going through his progressions, sometimes he loses some accuracy. But I'm with you on this one, Nick. I think this might actually be, it's not a good thing for your star quarterback in a contract year trying to make the playoffs to get hurt. But if it forces you to be more conservative, or not even necessarily conservative, but have a more run-focused, Zeke-focused game, what the hell did you pay the guy so much money for? What was the holdout for? What was Jerry Jones telling us he's the best back in the league for? This is why you need to run the football in a game like this, in an environment like this, with an injury like this.
Plus, you're coming off last week where they did run the football, and they finally beat a team with a winning record. Say what you will about Dak Prescott. Prescott, how well he's played, how he came out of the gate. This year was a big year for him. The team is still 7-7, which means this Sunday is an extremely important game for the team to make the playoffs if they win. Do you think what happens Sunday will determine whether or not Dak gets that big contract?
Dak's going to get a massive contract that the day he gets it, maybe the few days from when he gets it following, the biggest story on shows like this are going to be, did the Dallas Cowboys massively overpay for Dak Prescott? That is going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be a good deal or a good idea for them to give him the type of contract that he's going to get, but win or lose Sunday, he's getting that deal. The durability is a big part of it.
Yes.
The fact that you look at him and over half the league has had to play multiple quarterbacks this year. The Cowboys have gone to Dak Prescott from the moment Tony Romo broke his collarbone. He's not only been available for every game, but as I learned yesterday, he's been available for every practice. He also has the benchmark of guys in my draft class who I have been considerably better than this year. Not in the totality of the career, but this year. And Carson Wentz and Jared Goff. Wentz got 4 for $128. That's $32 million a year with $108 million guaranteed. Goff got 4 for $134. So that's $33.5 million a year with $110 million guaranteed. Dak is going to get 4 for $140 at a minimum. He's going to get $35 million a year with $110 million guaranteed, whether they win on Sunday by 20 points or lose on Sunday by 20 points, because that's the contract that I think the Cowboys might have offered him already before this season, right in line with Wentz and Goff, and he was turning that one down, and statistically, he's having his best year.
Yes, but they're having their most dysfunctional and worst year as a team, right? Because the whole argument for Dak Prescott is, yeah, he may not be the greatest quarterback ever, but the team is won.
Right.
Here you are in a year in which the division is an abject disaster. If you don't win the division in this year, where the Giants and the Redskins are non-competitive and the Eagles have guys on the roster who are practice squatters in a made-for-television Fox big game, America's game of the week, and you can't win this game, that whole argument of, I know he's not great, but he's a winner, and you don't win this year, I think it hurts it. And I don't think the Cowboys, I agree with you, he's going to get a deal. And it's going to be big, and we're going to argue about if it's too big. Mm-hmm. But if the Cowboys were a real organization that really sat there and thought, we can just franchise tag him, and then we can franchise tag him again, then we can franchise tag him again. You don't have to. And I do think the size of the deal will depend upon whether or not he wins and then how he does.
Wins Sunday or wins the division?
Well, if he doesn't win,
if he wins Sunday,
he does win the division.
Right. It's a wrap. Okay. And then you're like, well, look how many times he's won the division.
3 out of 4 years.
He never hurt. He has no off-the-field nonsense that anybody, in Dallas has had. Quarterbacks generally don't have, but Dallas has had. And so you'll get cost certainty in the deal. But the argument for Dak has always been, hey, the team wins. And I agree with you, the injury thing is a big thing because of who you come off. You come off Romo, who's a far better player, right? Romo made more things happen, lifted up a team with a terrible defense. But Romo seemingly was always hurt. Many of the actions were not his fault, right? Gronkowski's brother misses a block. That's how he broke his collarbone the first time. The broken back that essentially led to Dak becoming the quarterback. But it was always some nagging thing with Romo where this guy just finds a way to get on the field and compete every Sunday.
Let me say one more thing in defense of the Cowboys, because I don't think they should give him this deal. And I think they are going to give him this deal. Every team gives this quarterback this deal. You said if they were no organization has shown the stomach to do what I thought the Rams might. I thought the Rams with Goff, I thought they were going to maybe hold off. No organization has done what I would encourage them to do, which is when you have a quarterback that in your heart of hearts, he's good, but he's not great, to say we are not paying him like he's great. The Rams were close to doing it, and then the last moment they're like, no, Goff will give you all the money, and they're going to regret that forever.
Right. So if you're the Cowboys and you see Goff,
but they would have to be the first team to. Right, sorry,
I think the Tampa will do it with Jameis. right? Tampa is going, and I understand it's a different situation. Okay, he's had off the field nonsense. He throws out picks, right? Like Oprah gives out cars.
Yeah, but even Jameis might get in with all the off the field stuff and all the interceptions. Even they might say this year, let's give him one.
Yeah, but it's like a 1 or 2 more year deal. I just look, we're comparing to a bad contract, and as much as you said he's been better this year than Goff, I'd agree with you. Than Wentz, I probably agree with you. We could argue that one. He's never been a true MVP candidate late in the year.
I agree,
which Goff was like what Wentz was going to. And say what you want about Goff, and I agree that's a bad contract. I don't understand why the Rams did it. They did the exact same thing with Gurley the year before.
And they're paying for it.
Right. But he did not only lead them to a Super Bowl, they beat the Saints on the road, and he was a big reason why.
On to the Browns and Odell Beckham. It's been a season to forget for the talented but often misunderstood wide receiver. Statistically, his worst year on the field. Not a fun one off it either, culminating in rumors that earlier in the season he reportedly told other teams to, quote, come get me. Well, yesterday, Odell commented about his future with the Browns. Take a listen.
I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here. We're going to figure this thing out. It's just too special to leave. In my experiences in the league and, kind of going through the troubles that I did, I can now see how those stories, like for me, it'll never bother. It's never going to affect me. But then it's like, does it cause a little friction between you and a teammate who doesn't necessarily know what it is you're thinking? So it's just done. It's time to just put it to bed. Like, I'm going to be here. There's nothing more to talk about. It's just too good. I didn't buy a house here to sell it. I know people have said, I didn't sign them to trade them before, but I didn't really buy a house here to up and leave it.
That's a good line, Odell. That's a really good line.
I didn't buy a house to sell it.
Yeah, that's a good line by him.
Yeah, because good luck selling it. Okay. Mangini's here. I think he still has.
He might be in the market for a Cleveland.
He lives in Cleveland.
Yeah, still because he can't sell the house.
No.
Golly, what do you make of Odell knocking down trade rumors?
He's gone.
Really?
Yeah, of course he's gone. Remember, look, last week he said, I couldn't sit here and tell you whether I'm going to be here or whether I want to be here, right? Yes, you actually can. That's the way it works. And then he actually felt like he admitted there was some friction with a teammate. He's like, well, might be some friction with a teammate over not understanding. The more he talks, the more he lets us in on the fact that it's a complete. Don't stop with the Cleveland Browns is so special here. Do you remember Insane Clown Posse?
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you remember
Juggalos?
Do you remember any one song that they?
No.
Right? No one remembers a song, but you remember Insane Clown Posse.
The face paint. Oh.
Right. They're famous for just kind of having a interesting, clever name and face paint. That's about it. That's the Browns. The Browns are bad. They've been bad. They're going to be bad. They have a terrible culture. They have a coach who's completely in over his head. It's a Peter principle, right? Like this from business school, Peter principle, right, which is when you're advanced above the level of your competency. And I mean, look, they've been to the playoffs once since they've become a franchise. I think that a lot of sports fans think, oh, well, they're cursed because of the fumble and the drive. No. That franchise is in Baltimore. So this franchise sucks. They're Insane Clown Posse. We talk about it a bunch because they got a bunch of face paint, but they've never actually done anything. He needs to go somewhere else, and they need to completely start over with a coach and with a culture of guys that don't say anything. They just play football.
Okay, so I totally disagree with you on a number of things. First of all,
Insane Clown Posse?
Well, yeah. First of all, on that, because hey, Juggalos out there, that was his statement, not mine. Do not come for me. I think you messed with the wrong group of people. But more importantly, on Odell. So you brought up his quote from a few weeks ago when he was first asked about the trade stuff, and Odell did what he very often does, which is tried to answer honestly on a question I think he was caught off guard by about his future, and he opined openly, like, "Oh, I don't know. Am I going to be here? Am I not going to be here?" And what the friction he's talking about is what he was saying there was, I'm used to all this noise surrounding me. There's been a lot of noise surrounding me my whole career, so I don't let it affect me. But I might have teammates that see the headlines, see shows like this, and they start really wondering, wait, does Odell want out? I think you're right about Freddie Kitchens, but I think Odell probably has some good intel that Freddie Kitchens is not going to be there next year. And I think Odell, much like I do, still has faith that Baker can get this turned around. But maybe most importantly, Odell understands I've only got one parachute left. Do I want to spend it right now? I've never been skydiving. The way I understand, you have a parachute and then a backup parachute. Yeah. My guess is you don't go to the backup until you're certain the first one ain't working. Because if the backup then doesn't work, you're screwed. I think Odell realizes the smart play for him is let this offseason play out. See who the coach is. See if Baker gets back on track. See, by the way, where different quarterbacks are next season. Because there is no obvious place like, oh, we thought the Giants might send him to New England. I don't know if that's where you want to go right now with their quarterback situation in flux going into next year. He's been connected to L.A. Well, the Rams don't have the cap space, so you'd think the Chargers, who's going to be quarterback for them? Wait and see if Cleveland can get it right. Your best friend is there. Your college receivers coach is there. If Freddie Kitchens is the biggest part of the problem, Freddie Kitchens is not going to be there. So it's not so much that I buy that Odell is in love with being a Brown. I think he has matured enough to realize the grass is not always greener. And so let me see if this grass can get as green as I thought it would.
What about from the Browns' perspective? Should they want to get rid of Odell, get something else in, something maybe they need more for that team?
I think they should, and not necessarily more. Look, he's a great talent. No one is arguing whether or not he's a great talent. But what do they actually win? You know, and do teams with superstar wide receivers, especially noisy superstar wide receivers, win in the National Football League, right? The story of the league this year is that as much as we're infatuated with throwing the football down the field, running the football is actually the clear and more obvious way to win football games, right? It's the old, well, three things can happen when you throw it and two of them are bad. Darryl Royal famously said when he's the head coach of the University of Texas. So not that I necessarily agree with it, but it's just the idea of, if I'm the Browns, how much can you take? I agree with you. He is bright, but he has to be accountable for his words. He is the guy who, just like his teammate Jarvis Landry said, come and get me.
Maybe.
Like, you can't.
I mean, maybe he did. I'll tell you flatly, it is, with respect to the reporting on this, even though I guess it's not, what I'm about to say is not very respectful, there is no chance he asked the Steelers to come and get him. 0%. That now, whether or not he said it when they were playing, I think it was Seattle, San Francisco, New England in that stretch. They all want to play in San Francisco. Right. Could I see him having some interest there? Maybe. But all of a sudden it was Odell wants to go anywhere. The idea that Odell wants to go to another cold weather, Rust Belt city where the quarterback situation's in flux is to me insanity. So I feel like there's been all we know that he has said is what we saw a moment ago and the quote. Now that quote does open the original quote did open the door to it. So he has to be accountable to that. The come and get me stuff, especially even if it was said in the heat of the battle during a game, I think that is a little different than any actual on the record stuff we've heard from.
And I don't think I think the parachute one works. I also think it's the divorcee. Like, anybody can get divorced once. You get divorced twice, and now all of a sudden
you just,
people start thinking you're the problem.
Right.
And so And so does he want the problem to be him? Right. And so I think that's the question.
Moving on to the NBA now. They're serving up their biggest matchup of the season tonight. Lakers versus Bucks. Best team in the West versus best team in the East. Both with MVP candidates in LeBron and Giannis. Both with identical records at 24-4. Both with a chance for some early season bragging rights with a win tonight. Nick, how big of a measuring stick do you think this is for the Lakers?
Well, if the Lakers have a really, really interesting opportunity in the next week. If they go to Milwaukee and whoop them, and then on Christmas Day, if they avenge one of their only losses of the year and they beat the Clippers, the full-strength Clippers. I assume Kawhi is going to play on Christmas Day. I hope he plays on Christmas Day.
Should be a league mandate that he plays.
Absolutely. Then it will start to feel a little fait accompli-ish as far as what's going to happen in this season. If the Lakers can go to Milwaukee, they already had the toughest back-to-back you can have in the NBA. At Denver, at Utah, because of elevation, because of crowd, because of all that. Yeah. And they won both those games. They play their single toughest game on their schedule against the only player in the league that has a credible claim against LeBron to be the best player in the league. They're both going to be without one key player. The Lakers will be without Kuz, the Bucks will be without Bledsoe, but they're mostly at full strength, assuming Anthony Davis is going to play. And they beat them soundly. Then the title favorites in Los Angeles become the overwhelming title favorites, at least to me.
I don't know if I'm willing to say they become the overwhelming favorites, but this is a cologne game. You don't wear cologne every day, do you?
No.
Right? You only put on cologne those special nights.
Okay.
You put it on, and this is first Thursday night hoop game where it's not competing with Thursday night football, right?
Yep.
So now America's
Lakers TNT game.
Yeah, so now it's kind of real. And then here's my most fascinating part about this matchup. If you were 20 years ago to say, what does the ideal NBA player look like in 2020? You go, I don't know, 6'9", 6'10", can do everything. You're like, those guys don't really exist, right? They do, and they play for both of these teams, right? You have Giannis Antetokounmpo and Anthony Davis. Those two matching up each other is like something out of mythology, watching those two play the entire court, and I can't wait to see them guard one another. But you make a great point, and I agree with you. This LeBron playing so many minutes, playing the way he's playing, motivating his team to compete defensively on more possessions than other teams. This is what it all built up to. He wants to put the league on notice. He wants to put the haters on notice that last year was the outlier year. This is who LeBron is. This is why he came to LA. Yes, he can make movies. Yes, he can make commercials. Yes, his son can play on this made-up team of superstars. All those are ancillary benefits to winning with the Lakers.
Keeping the main thing, which is something he has said for years. And I don't think it's a coincidence that both these teams were 24-3, and then both of them lost their game leading up to this one. Now, they both had opportunities to win it. Giannis went for 48 in their most recent game, a loss to the Mavs without Luka. And the Lakers were up 5 with 3.5 minutes left. Then in a loss in Indiana, where LeBron didn't play particularly well. But they know this is the game.
Yes, none of that actually matters when everybody forgets that.
And
right?
so right now I feel like the title picture, if I were to put odds on it, I'd say we're at 55% Lakers, 35% Milwaukee, 10% field, 10% rest of the league combined. I know some people feel the Clippers should factor into that far more than I do. That's fine. We'll get to see more of that on Christmas Day. But the flip side to this is Milwaukee can also say,
yes,
it is our damn time.
Yes.
Because this is not a game that anyone on the Lakers is going to take lightly. And this is a game that I think both of these teams look at a measuring stick because it is the overwhelming likely finals matchup.
Who makes the bigger statement, though, with a win?
Well, kind of either. I do think it's big for Milwaukee on the other part that maybe is the elephant in the room. Everybody wants Giannis when he's a free agent. Right?
Yes.
And the last all-time great to play Milwaukee was a guy named Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And he left Milwaukee
to go to the
LA Lakers.
There you go.
I don't know if you guys have been to the new arena in Milwaukee. It's ridiculous.
It's unbelievable.
The guys who run that came from MSG, right? They're New Yorkers. They came in, threw a bunch of money at it and said, spare no expense. The practice facility is insane. And their whole buildup is, we're going to build a team around you, a championship caliber team. And imagine if LeBron James walks in and says, this is the Lakers, where in 2 years we can go from a laughing stock of the league and we figure it out, and that can be you. And oh yeah, by the way, his brother is in the Lakers organization. Like the whole thing is, it's almost like recruiting in college now, where in layup lines or at handshake lines, you can ask somebody to get in the transfer portal and come on over. That's how big this game is. It's not just this year.
And Milwaukee's got to make the finals. If Milwaukee makes the finals, Giannis resigns. If they don't, I don't think it's the Lakers. I think Pat Riley in Miami might have a rabbit up their hat. But this is a prelude to what is the biggest story of the NBA season, aside from the man over my left shoulder, which is the future of the man who will one day be the best player in the league if he isn't already, in Giannis Antetokounmpo.
All right. Let's move on back to the NFL now. Matchup of the weekend: Eagles hosting the Dallas Cowboys.
See, I think you're bearing the lead there, Jenna. We both pronounced Giannis's last name correctly in the same sentence.
Great job, Doug.
Thank you. Go
ahead.
Makes 3.
That's 3.
There you go. Thank you very much. These two teams tied 7-7 atop the NFC East. Philadelphia coming off 2 straight wins, where Carson Wentz has had to do a lot with a little, as the team is riddled with injuries up and down. A win Sunday, coupled with one next week, and the Birds are in. But Wentz hasn't beaten the Cowboys since 2017, so he's well aware just how big of a game this is. Nick, you think Sunday is the biggest game of that guy's career?
There's no question. It's absolutely the biggest game of his career. When they first said it, I shouldn't act like it's obvious, because when I first heard it, my reaction was, wait, was it? And then I thought about it, and I was like, well, yeah, definitely. The next biggest game of his career was the game where the 1 seed was on the line. He got his leg broken.
Yeah, against the Rams.
Against the Rams.
Yeah.
And so that even then they had been so good that year, they did have a margin of error. That if they lose that game, they still could have ended up being the 1 seed. There's no margin of error for them in this game. This is the first playoff game of Carson Wentz's career, and as an added bonus, if he wins it, he'll get another one. And both of them will be at home, and we will get to find something out this weekend, and then if they win it, 2 weekends from this weekend, about Carson Wentz that we do not know. I went into this year saying Carson Wentz, I don't care what the numbers say, is a better quarterback than Dak Prescott. I just know it when I watch him. And even though Wentz has really struggled this year and Dak's playing some of his best football, it's hard to make that case. But in my heart of hearts, I still believe it.
Yeah.
But what we know about Dak is the playoffs are not too big for him. Arguably the best game of his entire career came his rookie season in the playoff game against Aaron Rodgers, going toe-to-toe with him. He won a playoff game last year. He does not.
He was bad at the start of that game. They got down like 3 touchdowns.
Right, and then in that spot in a playoff game,
yeah, you can't let him back.
Let him back. What at the very least, what everyone has to acknowledge is Dak doesn't get worse in the postseason. He doesn't shrink in the postseason. I don't think Carson Wentz would, but we have no idea. No one thought Peyton Manning would be a worse postseason quarterback than regular season quarterback until you saw him in the postseason a bunch of times. You're like, oh, okay, so he's this guy in the regular season, this guy in the postseason. There are other guys who the opposite happens to. They are actually better in the bigger of spots. I want to see this from Carson Wentz. We have seen him struggle throughout the year, but in the last 2 weeks in the fourth quarters, now against awful opponents where they shouldn't have been in this position, he has led them back. He has played big in those big spots. How well does he play with an undermanned roster this weekend in what is unequivocally the biggest game of his career?
Yeah, look, the highs are, I think, way higher than Dak Prescott. I mean, even if you look at some of the throws, the New England throw was, I have no idea how he made it.
Against Aguilar?
In his hand, somehow dropping it in the bucket right at the back of the end zone. You go back, Aguilar dropped the ball against the Atlanta Falcons early in the year against cover 2, in between the corner and the safety. It was a magnificent throw. He's got to stop fumbling the football, right? 25 games, 23 fumbles. This year, I think 14 games, 7 lost fumbles. He has to hold on to the ball. He holds on the ball a little bit too long because he's trying to make a play because he doesn't have a ton of talent around him, and he's playing a little bit of hero ball, but he does have that hero ability within him. It is weird to say this is the biggest game of his career, but part of it is our recency bias, right? Whatever happened, we forget last week on the road, to a guy who was a practice squatter. He throws a touchdown pass and leads him to a 10-point come from behind win. But I think the guy does have the stuff. I do think he's gone to the place of being undervalued because of his contract, right? We look at his contract, we don't realize he was the MVP of the league before he got hurt, and we think Foles won the Super Bowl MVP, so Foles somehow is his equal or maybe even better than him. I love Wentz, and I do think it's a big game. I do think he'll play well. I just don't think he has the surrounding cast. I think this game is lost because they have so many guys injured, and the fact that they got fat and happy and thought they had somehow cured cancer when they won a Super Bowl in a year in which everything went right for them and everything went wrong for somebody else.
They're also an old team, and I think that ages. I think they were the 3rd oldest team coming into this season, and all the injuries. I wonder how much the narrative around Wentz changes if he does come out on this big stage on Sunday and wins. And second to that, how much he wins back the locker room, almost, if you will. Because one of the knocks on him is that he sort of lost the locker room with his leadership.
That's why I think the last 2 weeks, the fourth quarters are big, because nobody on the team cares that the Giants stink and Washington stinks.
Right.
They care that in the fourth quarter of those 2 games, he has a 138 passer rating, 4 touchdowns, no picks, and threw for 280 yards in 2 games they had to have.
And no Alshon.
With receivers just dropping like flies around him. With the defense against Washington playing really poorly. With the defense against the Giants playing poorly in the first half before the Giants went into a shell offensively. So I think he is on his way to winning over the people in the locker room he needs to. This game would solidify that at least temporarily until, to your point on recency bias, 2 weeks from now when they play a playoff game. But I'm excited, as a football fan, I'm excited to see it because you never know. You never know if the postseason is going to be too big for a guy. I know you are. You're going to be late rather than early on the Lamar Jackson train. And one of the reasons is he's only played in one playoff game, and in that playoff game he was totally overwhelmed for 3.5 quarters.
Booed off the field.
Right, for 3.5 quarters. And now he'll have an opportunity to redeem himself this year, and we'll see what he does. Wentz has never been in this spot. They've made the playoffs the last 2 years, and he's been injured the last 2 years. This is an enormous moment for him, and because Dallas can clinch the division, it is a playoff game for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Back here, first things first, now joined by that guy, former NFL head coach Eric Mangini.
What up, Coach?
Good morning.
Hi,
Good morning.
Coach.
Hi,
Coach
Hi.
also got a haircut.
Well, I got one last week, but thanks.
Yeah, last week. You got a haircut last week. It looks good. I'm good at noticing when someone's got a week-old haircut.
You are on top of it.
You said it smelled like fried chicken in here?
Yes, I did. I said a lot of things.
White meat or dark meat?
Oh, only white meat. Not that I have anything against dark meat. I love dark meat also. I just love all chicken.
You offended chicken lovers out there? Not there's anything wrong with that.
Let's move on. The Patriots head to week 16 with an impressive 11-3 record. Impressive given how poorly their offense has played, except for Julian Edelman. Brady's favorite target has over 1,000 receiving yards, but Edelman's knee injury, which held him to just 2 catches for 9 yards on Sunday, could be worse than expected, as reports are he did not look good in practice yesterday. Nick, Patriots have any shot at the Super Bowl if Edelman's knee injury is serious?
So this is the only member of the receiving corps that Brady has any faith in. And understandably. People think I'm just here to knock Tom Brady. I'm be very fair about what he's working with. There's one guy in the receiving corps that he knows, beyond a shadow of a doubt, is going to be where he needs to be at essentially all times. The other guy he knows is James White, but James White's not in the receiving corps. He's a running back coming out of the backfield. And given Brady's limitations at this stage of his career, nothing is more important than timing and precision. He's not going to beat you with an overpowering arm. He's not going to beat you by fitting a laser in through double coverage. He's going to beat you pre-snap. And a lot of the pre-snap is, I know where the defense is going to be, I know where my receiver's going to be, so that's how I'm going to beat you. So if Julian Edelman's not there, I already think the Patriots, if they're the 2 seed, are 1 and done in the playoffs, and if they're the 3 seed, they're 2 and done in the playoffs. They could win their first playoff game and then lose when they go to Kansas City. But without Julian Edelman, you really do start to wonder, wait, are they going to beat Buffalo? And if they don't beat Buffalo, they are the 3 seed, and then you're playing either the Steelers or the Titans. Is that a game that you can just pencil the Patriots in for a win on? 17-14 maybe? The offense will be one of the easiest offenses to defend if Julian's not there, because you essentially, tell me if you disagree, you add a defensive player. Because right now what teams are starting to do is bracket Edelman. They say he's the only guy you trust. We'll double him, make you go somewhere else. Well, now if someone you don't trust is in place of Edelman, you're not bracketing him, and that guy can either go in run support, can go deep middle of the field. It would be an enormous loss to the Patriots.
Yeah, it would. And look, in fairness, you don't think the Patriots have a chance to win even if Edelman's there.
That's
correct. We should just start that.
Yes.
Nick has an inherent bias against the Patriots. So let's just start with that. And then I went back and I looked at the first Super Bowl that we won. And in that run, we had 3 offensive touchdowns. And there was no chance that we could possibly win the Super Bowl. We went and played the Steelers in Pittsburgh, and we were the 2 seed, and we blocked a field goal for a touchdown. We had a punt return for a touchdown. There was one offensive touchdown that was actually thrown by Drew Bledsoe. And in the Super Bowl, it was the same thing. We had 1 offensive touchdown, but we had a pick for a touchdown as well.
But was that a conscientious, mantra down from coaches that, other aspects of this team are going to have to step up? We got to figure out a way.
It was just our reality, and we had gone through the season figuring out ways to win games, and it wasn't going to be pretty. I mean, at that point, the Rams were the greatest show on turf. Everybody else was better, was a sexier pick, were all those things. But that's not how football works. Football is a collective effort by all 3 phases, and New England has shown a great ability to be productive on special teams and on defense. And offensively, the one thing that they've done and done better than almost anybody over the last 20 years is not have self-inflicted wounds.
Yep.
Yes.
Don't beat yourself.
Let the other teams beat themselves, and maybe the burst that you need comes from the defense and the special teams. So to count them out, to me, is a little premature. But
I just want to make sure that we don't overvalue the video of how he looked. Okay, we don't have the video, but if you saw it, it looked bad, right? He looked like the oldest man on earth. On the other hand, they're in outdoor practice after like a snow and ice storm. He's 34 years old. Has anybody gone out? Nobody goes out and gets the paper anymore, but go out and get the paper, and you start, the football game plays, and suddenly, magically, I'm sure he'll be fine. He's Julian Edelman. He'll be on the field on Sunday, right? Like, you got a gimpy knee. It's all swollen up. You're warming up in the snow and ice. But I do agree with Coach. It's like, look, you're not wrong, Nick. N'Keal Harry looks like a complete bust, right? He was hurt, and now he's lost, and Tom has no faith in him because he doesn't know where he's going to be. He's not where he's supposed to be, and if Tom throws in the vicinity, you'd think he'll go up and catch it, and it hasn't worked yet. Mohamed Sanu feels like a swing and a miss. They traded for the wrong guy. They should have called Denver. Instead, they called Atlanta in terms of making a trade for a wide receiver. But you don't have to beat everybody. You don't have to outscore everybody the whole season. You just have to have one more point than your opponent. And we're talking about the Buffalo Bills, who have a magnificent defense, but have a quarterback who's young and hasn't won in New England, right? Didn't even survive the last New England game. And he's a guy that's wildly inaccurate, very likely to throw the ball for a turnover. They have an offense that doesn't overwhelm you, which allows you to think that the Patriots will be in the game.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the plan going into the game is so important, and New England is built to have the flexibility to be game plan specific. And I know every team talks about that idea of their game plan specific, but that's how the organization and the team is built, the way that you can attack other teams' weaknesses and minimize your weaknesses as well. And that gives me a unique advantage over the competition.
Listen, and in respect to the other receivers, yes, it's possible N'Keal Harry is a bust, and that DK Metcalf, a player taken after him, is just better, and that McCole Hardman, a player taken after him, is just better. Or it's possible those guys get to play with Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes, and that is helping them. And it's possible that Mohamed Sanu just all of a sudden lost the ability to play football, and Emmanuel Sanders never did. Or it's possible Emmanuel Sanders gets to play with Jimmy Garoppolo, and Mohamed Sanu does not. But the reason that I don't think I am overvaluing or writing the Patriots off too early is Edelman was healthier, or at whatever health he was at ostensibly at the end of that Chiefs game, right? And that was, or maybe he was healthier then because that was a week and a half ago. And he was in single coverage for the game-tying touchdown. And I know we're not going to say Brady missed the throw, because it's not something, Brady's not going to miss that throw, right? So that means Edelman was unable to get open then. That was 10 days and a game ago. And that he is the guy, he caught the running back pass. He caught the flea flicker touchdown. The running back pass, I think, went to Jacoby Myers. And you think that I bring up the blocked punts and the flea flickers and the running back pass as a dig. It's not it at all. I have tremendous respect for teams going to the well and finding, okay, nothing is working, so let's find something that can. My concern for the Patriots is, particularly on the trick plays on offense, there's a reason you want to keep those in reserve. There's a reason that the Patriots have traditionally in the Super Bowl unveiled a trick play pass, because they have not had to go to that play earlier in the season. Now, blocked punts, you're going to try to block punts throughout the season, of course, but those types of things, they're showing you their looks early because they have to go to them already, when traditionally they haven't had to do that in order to win these games.
There's more than like 2 or 3 gadgets in the football world.
Of course.
Like every week you have 3 to 4 gadgets on your sheet that you practice, and sometimes that look that you need comes up in week 12 or week 14 or whatever it is. And they're not all, you need a certain or a specific look or a specific coverage to let that hit. So if it comes up in week 16 or week 8 or whatever week it is, that's when you want to use it, when you have the highest probability of it hitting. You're going to have gadgets for each of the playoff games and for the Super Bowl. Now, whether you get the look to run it,
and they still have not used what I'm certain they will at some point, which is Mohamed Sanu has the highest passer rating in the history of the NFL. I think he's 7 of 8 for like 5 touchdowns, and they haven't had him throw a pass yet. I think when they traded for Mohamed Sanu, who used to play quarterback, we all said, oh, at some point they're going to use him. They have not done that yet. Maybe it's because they haven't gotten the look. Maybe it's because they're holding it in reserve for break glass in case of emergency. But that's the situation the Patriots offense is in at full strength with Julian Edelman. Without him.
But every game you break glass. Like, New England's not sitting back going, all right, we're going to keep these 15 plays in reserve. They're trying to win that game. That's how it is.
And maybe it's because Nick used to work in Houston, right, where they broke out those Letterman jackets.
No, it's nothing.
And they could never beat the Patriots when he was there. Maybe it's because he's a Chiefs. Maybe it's because he's a Chiefs guy and he's so used to the Chiefs losing at home in the playoffs, collapsing in the second half with a big lead on a yearly basis.
Maybe it's because I'm the only person not afraid to say I watched Tom Brady all year long and he's not very good anymore.
No,
maybe that's what it is.
Others have said it. Okay, others have declared him dead. He just is not dead until there's no pulse.
Coach, how concerned are you about that shoulder? Do you think it'll affect his play on Sunday?
We talk all the time about quarterbacks and what they're going to become and who they are. And these are the moments that from a coaching staff perspective and from an organizational perspective, you're looking at a guy to see how they respond. The first time they really have to deal with an injury that could affect their ability to perform and how well they deal with that pain. And from listening to people who are in the building and even the comments that you hear from Jason, he has an inherent toughness. And I think he'll be able to overcome the pain that's associated with it. And look, he'll get some medicine from the doctors too to help him overcome the pain that's associated with it. It's funny that Zeke talking about he couldn't imagine throwing with that injury. Well, yeah, because ideally he gets the ball that many more times. A little bit of lobbying there. Right. But I think he'll do well considering how painful the injury is and the other injuries he's dealing with. It's a little bit funny that he got hurt running a quarterback-driven run. Not funny, but there's all we talk about is Lamar and the quarterback-driven runs and how the game is changing. And here, this is what he gets hurt on: a quarterback-driven run going into the most important game of the season. So you can keep those
right. And that is, and by the way, that is something that. At least I have said, I can't remember quite your take on it, was that the Cowboys should consider incorporating more in the other red zone.
They listen to you.
They listen to me and he gets hurt.
Now he's got an AC joint. Good job, Nick.
But let me ask you this real quick, though, because the other news that came out of this was, I guess it wasn't news, but it was just a fact I didn't know, was that not only has Dak never missed, we knew he hadn't missed a game, he's never missed a practice, and this is the first time he's ever even been limited in practice. He's ever been listed on the injury report as anything other than a full participant. This is the end of his 4th year. You've obviously coached teams and been around a bunch of teams. How rare is that? I was wildly impressed by that he has gone this long in the league without ever having to be listed on the injury report as being limited in practice.
It's rare, but sometimes you can look at something like that and think that guy has a special regimen or he has some secret to not get injured. And I don't think it's as scientific as that. Sometimes it's just a function of
good luck,
of being lucky. And I've been to programs where they talk about how great their medical department is and their weightlifting or their strength conditioning department, and then the next year there's a boatload of injuries. So he's been incredibly fortunate to have the health that he's had.
It actually is fascinating. I mean, we went around about Lamar. We've talked off air about Lamar, but the guys that last longest. I mean, Phillip Rivers has never missed a start. Torn ACL, never missed a start. Eli Manning only missed a start because they put Geno Smith in, a couple years ago, right? The guys that stand tall in that pocket. Yeah, Tom Brady tore his ACL when somebody rolled up on him, but outside of that, doesn't miss a start except for when he was suspended a couple years ago. He missed 4, right?
But Russell Wilson's on that list as well.
No, I know.
And Russell Wilson runs around a bunch.
He does, but is he the exception?
I think he is. Absolutely, I think he's
and though he runs it, he ran it a bunch his first 3 years. Now he just moves
he runs
to throw.
It way less.
He runs it way less, but also I also think sometimes it is about the durability of the player. In that Cam Newton prior to last season had missed 3 games in his entire NFL career and was the most running quarterback we had seen since Michael Vick. And so some guys can withstand the punishment at least for a 6 to 8 year period. How much that's going to affect Cam moving forward. But on Dak for this football game, here's to me, Coach, the silver lining. I think the way to beat the Eagles, if they're going to beat the Eagles, is the way they won last week against the Rams. Run the damn football. Give Zeke as many carries as possible. When you're 5-0 against the Eagles when Zeke plays. He's averaged 165 yards from scrimmage. He's coming off his best game of the season. Tony Pollard's coming off the best game of his career because the Rams had showed no resistance whatsoever. Pro Bowl rosters just came out. Even if you want to throw those out, you got 3 Pro Bowl offensive linemen. See if Philadelphia can stop the running game to where you don't need Dak to drop back more than 25 times.
So what have the Eagles been really good at the whole year?
Stopping the run.
Stopping the run.
Right. Defensive backfield's the weakness of their
yeah, so it may be your strength, but you're going to go against their greatest strength. And if they think that Dak can't throw, they're going to just load the box up. And then you can also incorporate run pressures that help disrupt the running game as well. If you don't back those guys off some, as good as Zeke has played against them, it's hard. It's going to be hard to find spots.
I also think it's a big challenge for Kellen Moore. Here you have a rookie play caller, right? And I thought early in the year he got a little too cute. This is not a game to get cute.
Well, it was easy to get cute. The first 3 games of the season for Dallas, Dak looked like a Hall of Famer.
Right.
Looked incredible. They were like, let's take this out and see what we can do with it.
Yeah, but now you're on the road in Philadelphia. You don't want to get cute, right? And yes, on paper, sitting here in a studio in New York, you want to run the football. But as Coach points out, they load the box, and the defense determines you should throw the ball. You got to make the right adjustments. The big thing is, everybody wants to do the jet motion. Everybody wants to have all the bells and whistles. You're the Cowboys. You have better players. Identify where the mismatch is and attack that spot. Correct?
Well, we don't know if they really have better players. Everybody has projected that they have better players. They haven't played like they have better players. And to get back to the play calling, you want to incorporate these quarterback-driven runs, and it's worked for other people. And here you are, your guy gets hurt on one of them. That, to me, is disappointing.
Nick, Dak only has a couple more games where he can prove whether or not he deserves this big contract that's sort of been hanging over the Cowboys' head all season. Is this one of those games where we're going to see whether he actually earns the big money?
I believe he has gotten the money. Like, he hasn't actually gotten it, but he's going to get it. There is, barring a career-ending injury, God forbid, he is going to get a massive contract this offseason. And I think that the Cowboys, it's probably... If they have decided they're going to do it, it is in their win or lose this weekend. It's in their interest to do it quickly because what you already let Wentz and Goff get their new deals while you and Dak were going back and forth. And if you look at the numbers, Dak's obviously been better than Wentz and Goff this season by a considerable margin. If you let Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes, even if you throw Mahomes out because they can say Mahomes flatly better. He's been further in the playoffs, has won an MVP. Deshaun Watson, they can't say any of those things about him. If I'm Dak's agent and Deshaun's going to get more money than Goff or Wentz, I say, why shouldn't I get Deshaun Watson money? He's already going to get Jared Goff money, which is 4 for 134 with 110 guaranteed. I don't think it's predicated on if they win this football game or not.
But all people talk about on shows is how disappointing it is that Wentz and Goff got contracts.
Yes.
So now you're going to rush to give another guy a contract that you're not sure on? To me, these are the types of games that do help you become sure on a player. Because how do they play through adversity? And we talk about how do they play in pressure with the playoffs? How do they play through adversity? What kind of personal performance they have? What type of toughness do they show? And it's not just going to be this week. It's going to be next week. And these injuries aren't going to be fully healed by the time they get to the playoffs, assuming that they win. There's a lot of questions that still have to be answered. He bet on himself, and right now they're a mediocre team. And people are regretting the Goff contract and the Wentz contract. So as a owner and as a organization, you have to say, am I heading down that same path? Or am I making a good decision? This is the guy that's going to lead us.
I think it's a great point. It's a lot like when Darrelle Revis wanted to be the highest paid cornerback, and the Jets said he's the best cornerback on earth, right? You drafted him, and it was after, and Rex Ryan's the coach, and he said, all right, I want Nnamdi Asomugha number. money. Nnamdi Asomugha was a terrible deal for the Raiders. Why do you want to copy a terrible deal? Why do you want to copy the Jared Goff deal, which we all know is a weight that's bringing down the Rams now, like the Gurley contract. It's going to be even worse in the future. And I think that the Cowboys have to be cognizant of it. Look, the argument for Dak has been this, and you tell me if I'm wrong, is
he wins.
He wins.
Yeah.
And if you want to tell me that with a roster that Jerry believes is a Super Bowl roster, he can't beat the Eagles, who are decimated by injuries and can't win this division this year, that argument kind of leaves the room.
I agree with everything. He's still going to get paid. And this is why I said to you yesterday off the air that I think you should, if I owned an NFL team, I'd hire you to be my general manager. I think you're smart about this. I think you have a clear head about this. I do not think we are yet to see an NFL team have a quarterback succeed to the level Dak has and have their contract come up and not give him the market-setting deal.
New England Patriots.
What do you mean?
They don't always give Tom Brady the market-setting deal.
But they did the first.
They pay him underneath the market on a consistent basis.
Okay, but they're yet to have a guy walk, and Brady's in a special category, and we all pretend Tom Brady in 2010 became the highest-paid player in football. The first time he had an opportunity to get real big money, he took it. Since then, he's taken under-market deals. But teams don't let these guys walk away.
Doug, you want to play a little in or out?
On
yes,
what? The in or out?
Yes. Okay.
Is
Yeah,
Odell Beckham trading in?
We didn't rehearse it.
Hold
We
on.
didn't rehearse it. We'll rehearse it for
Just
tomorrow.
wait. She screwed you up.
Yep,
you
she
didn't
did.
know. Go
She
ahead.
always does.
It's not your fault, Jenna. That was really on Doug.
Yesterday, Odell Beckham Jr. addressed trade rumors by saying he's not going anywhere, but that doesn't mean the Browns agree. Here we go, Doug. You in or out on Cleveland trading OBJ this offseason?
I'm confused by whether or not out means that he's out or in means I'm in. I agree with him trading him, right?
You agree with the Browns trading him?
Yes.
Okay.
In. Goodbye. Somebody asks you, do you want to be traded? Or the answer is no, I want to be here. That wasn't his original answer.
Correct.
Then a week later, he's like, well, I really want to. Look, there's a reason the Giants signed him to the biggest contract in the history of the sport of the position, and then, shortly thereafter said, we're better without you.
Right.
Because they're poorly run. But go ahead.
Okay, and the Browns are poorly run, and everybody's poorly run, or does he help you actually win football games? He's a magnificent talent, but is he a guy that helps you win football games, considering how much you pay him? Obviously depends on the return, but I would be in on trading him, and he'd be out of Cleveland, if that makes sense.
I'm out on this, and I think if you're in the business of collecting talent and not building a team, then Odell is perfect for your roster. So he's a good fit there, and then also he said over and over again that 2020 is going to be a magical year for him, so I wouldn't want to miss out on that upside.
I love you guys so much.
I'm out on this. You don't get better by trading away your most talented players. The New York Giants, they're so smart for trading Odell Beckham Jr. They have, where are they? Let me look at them in the standings for this year.
It's not great.
Oh,
Nick.
they have 3 wins. I mean, the Browns now.
So the Browns are so talented. Where are their wins? Help me out.
They have 6 wins. A team
against a really soft schedule, but yes, okay.
I don't know if I agree. The soft schedule the last half of the year, beginning of the year, an incredibly difficult schedule. But listen, we can blame Odell for this. That's fine. It's fun to do. Odell came out yesterday and said exactly what everyone demanded he say, but nobody cares. I'm out. The Browns are not better off trading Odell Beckham. He might be better off elsewhere, but they're not better off trading.
Can we do this one?
No.
On to the Cowboys.
On to the Cowboys, like he said. Dak was a limited participant in practice for the first time in his career yesterday because of that shoulder injury. Seems like he will play Sunday, but it is unlikely he'll be 100%. Doug, you in or out on the Cowboys beating Philly if Dak isn't completely healthy?
I am in.
On Dallas beating Philly.
On Dallas beating Philadelphia, even if he isn't fully healthy.
This isn't your favorite game, is it?
It's just, it's
very straightforward. Are you in on the Cowboys being able to win this weekend? Okay,
yes.
tell us why.
Because the Eagles are throwing out practice team players. And I don't love their roster makeup. And Lane Johnson is, it's like, remember the victory parade? Like Lane Johnson is either hurt or suspended. In this case, he's hurt. Right? He's their best offensive lineman, and he's hurt. Nelson Aguilar is hurt. I just think the Cowboys, this is a roster win, and I do think they can figure out how to win a game. The biggest issue I have with the Cowboys is their special teams has been an abject disaster, and in close games, in playoff caliber games, that comes back back to bite you, but I'm going to bite the bullet and take the Cowboys anyway.
Yeah, I'm in on covering these segments in the production meetings in the morning.
Yep.
I think that would be good.
Yep.
And then I'm also
Note taken.
Yeah,
Thank you.
All right. Just kidding, Nick. I'm also in on them being able to win this week, and I think that he'll get the medication that he needs. I think that he'll be able to respond the way that you would hope he would respond based off of the way that people have described him, his toughness, his resilience, those things. And at the end of the day, Dallas should have plenty to win the game this weekend.
I was out on the Cowboys winning this game before we found out Dak was dealing with a significant shoulder injury. Of course, I'm out at this point. I don't think they're going. People look at the Rams game and say the Cowboys finally figured it out. I don't know that they figured anything out. They finally played a complete game against a good opponent. The idea that they're going to be able to do that in consecutive weeks, I reject it. Now, you might say Philly's not a good opponent,
yes,
which I understand that line of thinking on this. And because of that, it wouldn't be shocking if the Cowboys win, but I do not think they're going to win. I think the wrong team's favored in this. I think Philly's going to win. I think Philly's going to win the division.
I actually agree with you on this one.
Appreciate that, Jenna Wolfe.
Precedented event. The Cleveland Browns have had a year to forget after sky-high preseason expectations. Some expect that head coach Freddie Kitchens will take the bulk of the blame. All right, Doug, follow along now. Are you in or out on Freddie Kitchens returning as Cleveland's head coach next season? The options are in or out on Freddie Kitchens returning.
Out. I have a mess.
Mazel tov.
I think if you went back and read it again, you would, or listen, it would be
fine.
More confusing.
We got it.
But I am out. Look, and I think the reason that they couldn't get some of the more legitimate, respected head coaching candidates out there is because you knew you were walking in where John Dorsey ran the show and Baker Mayfield was the biggest name and the biggest personality in Cleveland. And so if things went wrong, you were going to get the blame. So that's one reason that he's going to be out. The second reason is they're poorly coached, right? And coaching a team like this that has no discipline, you should and will take the fall from. The Myles Garrett thing is just the tip of the iceberg, but happening on Thursday Night Football in front of the entire world was embarrassing. And for that, and not making the playoffs.
With the T-shirt after.
No, look, I'm in on him coming back. I think that there's no playbook that you get as a first-time head coach, and you're going to make mistakes. And he was chosen for a specific reason, but he needs to have the support of the gym. He needs to have the support of ownership, and I think there's things collectively that they can do better. But to get rid of the guy after 1 year, I don't think is a fair assessment of his ability to lead in the future.
Listen, the Browns once upon a time made, I think, a grievous franchise-altering mistake by firing a coach too early. This would not be one of them. Out. Freddie, listen, I'm not certain Freddie's an offensive coordinator in this league. He's not a head coach in this league. And I would think, I don't have intel on this, but I would think one of the reasons Odell, all of a sudden, I definitely want to be back here. Maybe he got a little whisper in his ear. There are going to be some changes made that are going to make things better next year. So I'm out on Freddie.
He bought a house.
Here's the interesting part.
And he has the orange.
You don't know if he's an offense coordinator or a head coach, and he's trying to be both.
That's a good point. Yes, absolutely right.
Biggest mistake he's made.
Coach, thanks for hanging out today. All right, let's talk some Cam Newton now. Cam was shut down this season with a foot injury. At first, the Panthers looked great without him, winning their first 4 games with Kyle Allen. Since then, however, they have not. They've gone 1-7, and that's left the door open for Cam to return to Carolina. Cam would love to stay, saying, quote, "In order for me to leave, they got to get rid of me." So, Nick, should the Panthers move on from Cam Newton?
Cam's comments there were the single best thing to happen to the Panthers organization since they won the NFC Championship game against the Arizona Cardinals 4 years ago. Because their commentary of really openly opining about whether or not Cam would be there, when the only way he wouldn't be there is if he's cut or traded, and then their firing of Ron Rivera, who he and Cam had a great relationship, if Cam wanted out or wants out, he can get out. Like, what's not going to happen is a new head coach going to come in there and say, on a 1-year lame duck quarterback who doesn't want to be here, this is who we're investing in. So their best option, their only chance at competing at a high level next year is with a healthy Cam Newton. Now, we don't know if he's going to be healthy, but he has had now essentially a full season to recover, not only from the shoulder, but from the Liz Frank injury, the foot injury, out since week 2 for an injury he suffered in the preseason. So no, they shouldn't move on from him. They have no viable option. They have not been bad enough to where they're going to have a top 5 pick, and I don't know how much people love the quarterbacks in this class to begin with. Kyle Allen obviously is not the quarterback of the future, and they love Will Grier so much it took losing 7 of 8 to go to the kid who they spent a 3rd-round pick on. So, yeah, of course they should keep Cam Newton. They're very fortunate Cam Newton ostensibly wants to be there.
Well, I think he wants to be there because the owner, David Tepper, came out and said, Cam isn't going anywhere, right? This was a reaction to his comments. But I also think that it's the reality of the timing of how it works in the offseason. Remember, free agency is before the draft. So as much as you don't know if you like those guys, you may like a guy, you don't know if he's going to be where you want to draft. I also think there's the cost certainty of, hey, it's only $19 million. And we're talking about what Dak's going to make.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking on the plus side of $30 million. Mm-hmm. Mahomes is going to make in the $40 million. Aaron Rodgers, $19 million.
It's less than Nick Foles.
It's nothing for a guy who's been an MVP. Now, look, I don't love Cam. I don't know how it works. I don't know. He hasn't been healthy. Regardless of how many games he missed previous to this season,
the last couple years,
there's always something. He's a guy who's inaccurate, but it's really, really hard to find one of these guys. It just is. Don't believe me? Ask the Miami Dolphins. They've been searching for 25 years since Dan Marino walked out. Ask the Buffalo Bills since they lost Jim Kelly. Yeah, they're back in the playoffs. They still don't know if Josh Allen is the guy. It's really hard to find a guy. There's like 20 people on the face of the earth that can be a legit NFL quarterback, and Cam Newton clearly can. So this is Cam making the best. He has so much sweat equity, and I don't know if there's a better situation for Cam, right? Like, tell me a team that it works with Cam Newton, right? If you want to tell me the LA Chargers,
that's the answer.
The Chargers?
Yeah, I think.
I don't think so. Like, look, their wide receiving core is amazing. You're going from a guy who, Philip Rivers has his flaws, but he's crazy, crazy accurate, right? Cam Newton
he had been
accurate, right? You got Mike Williams, you got Keenan Allen, you have a legit big time tight end. I don't think the Chargers would give him a long-term. He wants a long-term deal to go, and no one believes he's going to be healthy.
I'm not saying the Chargers necessarily would have interest. I'm saying if I'm Cam Newton, if the Dave Tepper had come out and said we're releasing him after the season, and Cam had his choice,
which by the way you can't really do because it kills your.
Of course, no, I understand, but I'm just saying I'm not looking at it from are the Chargers interested in him. I'm looking at it if I'm Cam, where people are going to say Chicago or Tennessee. Now Tennessee might keep Tannehill because those are good defenses. In Tennessee, a great running game. They are limited at quarterback. For Cam, the weapons in Los Angeles are amazing.
Yes.
Where the Chargers, I think, would be interested is, man, they need a star and they need eyeballs. They are, forget the first, in LA, Lakers, Dodgers, then maybe USC. You're out there.
Yes.
Like, the Chargers do not rate at all.
Correct.
It's why, honestly, if you believe the Tom Curran reporting about Brady and his future, why that might make sense for the Chargers with Brady to go from one old quarterback to an even older one. But on Cam, for the Panthers, their only choice is him. And I have been remarkably consistent on this, even when Kyle Allen was going on that winning streak. You knew it wasn't sustainable, and you do have Doug, one of those 20 guys, I would argue when healthy, one of the 10 best in the world. You don't move on from him when he's cheap. It'd be different if they had to give him a contract extension, but they don't have to give him a contract extension.
Yeah, I just don't like the 10 best in the world. I just don't think he's a great quarterback.
When healthy, he was at one point the best in the world for a year.
No, he was the MVP. He was never the best
that year he was the best quarterback.
But just quickly, what's the timing on it? Do the Panthers have the luxury of waiting to see if he's healthy before they decide to do?
Of course, they can do whatever they want. He's under contract. They could.
He's under contract for 1 year, but look, I think it's a prove it year. And remember, the Panthers could also franchise him if they wanted to stay. But I think it's a pretty easy prove it year. Prove it, one, you can stay healthy.
Right.
Two, let's see what the coaching staff you bring in. Can you fit in? Do you keep Norv Turner as he's tried to evolve to this style?
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern.